Let's talk about somebody else who's very involved in this Zionism, anti-Zionism argument. This is a woman named Susan. We won't use her last name because we don't want her to take action against the video. But this person, Susan, she's just on every video commenting and sending me multiple emails per day. I mean, 5, 10 emails per day. More emails than my closest friends and closest associates send me. So, I'm ready to reveal that this is the person who brought forward the strongest evidence that Mr. Steele has died. And by the way, that evidence is not any document that has legal force and effect. It is not a document that could be presented to a life insurance company or would be considered a legal document in any way, but it is evidence. Even if it's falsified, it's evidence. It's an element of evidence. It's evidence of something. But I had put out on Twitter, you know, a few days after it was announced, with no evidence that Robert David Steele had died, I was searching around for evidence that he had or had not, and it got me to a point where I put out a tweet saying, hey, anybody who can present me with legitimate evidence that this guy is dead, I will give $100 to. And that resulted in me getting an email almost immediately from this woman, Susan, who I had suspected of being a social engineer simply because of the amount of my time that she wastes with inane emails. They were never, you know, firsthand evidence along the lines of what I'm describing here. Anytime I would have Ole or the Moriartys or anybody who said anything that she didn't like about Israel, she would berate me, accuse these people of being anti-Semites, asking me why I'm giving a platform to anti-Semites, you know, fueling this fire of I should be on the side of Israel, and because I'm Jewish, this is how I should think, etc. Frankly, it was offensive. I do not appreciate fellow Jewish people who arrive at some presumption that I should have a particular point of view because of who I am or where I live or anything like that. I find it offensive. But I was being nice to this woman because I figured, you know, she's watching the show, she's trying to be helpful, whatever. So she sends me this obituary. Almost immediately after I put out this tweet, only this woman, it wasn't like 5 people sent me the same obituary. It almost seemed as if the tweet that I put out prompted someone to post that obituary, and then this woman, Susan, sent it to me. So I sent her the $100. I said to her, well, okay, this meets the criteria. It is an obituary printed, I had said, in a legitimate newspaper. This was on a website that seemed to be owned by a newspaper. I didn't want her to feel like I made a promise that I wasn't going to keep. Stupid idiots. Here's more idiots. Out of control, on a scooter. Anyway, we got a lot of out-of-towners here today. Point is, I didn't want her to feel like I had made an offer that I wasn't fulfilling, so I sent the woman $100. So someone like Susan, if she's sincere and not a social engineer, I'm not saying this woman, Susan, is a social engineer. I'm saying she behaved in a way that gave me sufficient suspicion that I entered into this line of questioning with her. First of all, I'm suspicious of the evidence that was provided that purports that Robert David Steele is dead. I'm still looking for better evidence. That doesn't mean I'm saying that he's not dead. I'm just saying I find all of the evidence that's been used so far, with the singular exception of this obituary, which I located with the help of this woman, Susan, help in quotes, all of the other evidence that I have seen contradicts the claims that that evidence is alleged to support, in the same way that these dancing Israelis, that's evidence, but you can't make the legitimate claim that those guys getting arrested in New Jersey is definitive evidence that Israel did something. I'm speaking specifically about an allegation that 4 or 5 specific individuals were arrested near New York after 9/11 who are alleged to be Mossad affiliated, and she's saying, no, they call America the Great Satan. Well, that doesn't address what I'm talking to her about. So again, this is another clue that I could be speaking to someone who just doesn't understand what I'm talking about and maybe isn't that intelligent, or is deliberately trying to deceive me and run me around. So I said, that statement has nothing to do with what I just said. She says, yes, it does. We disagree again. And I just told her, you saying what you say is not a response to me telling you it is irritating. Is not a response. You telling me that is irritating. You are essentially telling me you want to irritate me. So then I said, may I call you? What is your phone number? And she said, no, thanks. Now, this is somebody who I've just sent $100 to, somebody who emails me 5-10 times a day, and I'm just saying, can we speak on the phone? And she says, no. So I said, you are under heavy suspicion of being a social engineer. If you will not speak to me on the phone, I'm going to block you, demand you return the $100, and ask you to cease all communication with me. So she says, I'm not going to be threatened by you, goodbye, and she blocks me on Twitter. Now, that wasn't a threat. That was just a conditional statement where if you don't want to talk to me, you are making me think you're a social engineer. I have suspected from the moment that it arrived, and now suspect even more, that this woman, Susan, was sent to me to distract me with nonsense, to draw me into this endless argument about Israel versus Palestine, Palestine versus Israel. Take a side. You have to be on a side. You're a Jew. You should be on this side. Trying to tell me what to think, trying to tell me what to say to other people. And you know what? Maybe she is just an innocent woman who's very opinionated and stupid and wants to share that stuff. But in my view, if she were a legitimate viewer and she cared about this show and she cared about helping me, which all her other behavior supports that presumption, she would have said, okay, I'll speak to you on the phone, but I don't want it to be broadcast. I don't want it to be recorded. There's a number of things she could have said other than just straight no. And the fact is, I don't trust Susan, and I haven't for a long time. And that's it. It's cemented now. So I don't think I should have given her the $100, and I have no way of getting it back now. But if you're watching this, Susan, you're a thief and a liar, and you should send that $100 back. And if you do, I'll apologize. If you speak to me on the phone and explain these otherwise inexplicable things, perhaps there can be an apology. But this is the process that I go through. I'm not just randomly saying this or that person is a social engineer. And it should always be predicated, particularly if it's somebody that I don't know that well, by the possibility that they might just be a rude, obtuse idiot. A lot of people who come at me posing as friends who are liars. And I've suspected for a long time that that woman, Susan, was one of them. Curious that she has the same first name as Susan Holmes, one of the original old school social engineers who came at me. People who don't remember, that was Queen Tut. And her play was, oh, you got a problem with Robert David Steele? I got a problem with Robert David Steele. Let me share this information with you about Robert David Steele. Oh, amazing. Shows up in a cause of action that I get accused of defaming Robert David Steele for things that this woman, Susan Holmes, said. There are so many people who come at me trying to get on the show so that they can say something stupid, get the channel blocked, get the video struck. They want to tell me information about people that I'm working with to try to make me not trust them, to try to make me doubt them, to try to create a condition where anybody who calls me has to be treated with extreme skepticism. So if you're out there in the audience, if you see this video at any time between now and the time that I cease making videos, if you decide that you want to contact me, I hope you will. I hope people will. But please be aware that there are so many people who are constantly trying to deceive me that you're going to need to approach me very carefully, and it's not like just calling up a friend of yours. I don't know you. And if you want to call me to tell me that somebody that I trust should not be trusted, you got to have very good evidence.